Hey, Year 11. So today we're going to look at the different areas that a business needs to manage when they're trading inventory. So this is going to include how we keep things like our inventory secure and how we maintain our records of different inventory lines. So let's jump straight in and have a bit of a look. So in the past, we talked about wages being one of the biggest expenses that a business can have and why it's so important to manage our staff effectively and efficiently. But today we're going to be looking at our inventory because for a trading business, one of the biggest assets that we can have is that of our inventory. So we need to make sure that we're managing it really well. And in cases like this, we will be focusing on things like the drawings of our inventory. Okay, so when the owner takes inventory out of the business, when it's used for advertising, determining the gross profit of the business, which is the profit that we make from our sales. We're not considering any other expenses. We're also looking at how we efficiently manage our inventory and how we protect it. Okay? And finally, we'll be looking at our turnover rates. So when we're looking at drawings of inventory, this is when an owner takes inventory out of the business for their own personal use. Now, it's important to note that drawings of inventory, just like drawings of cash, cause a decrease in owner's equity, but it's not actually an expense. So it's a negative equity item. It's going to be reducing our assets and decreasing our owner's equity. Now remember, this pretty much fits the definition of an expense, except it is clearly stated that it is not. When we're looking at how we record this drawing of inventory in our inventory card, obviously because stock is leaving the business, inventory is leaving the business, we need to make sure that we're recording it in the out column with the memo number. In a similar fashion to drawings of inventory, sometimes we'll use inventory to help advertise our business. This could be done for a raffle or for a fete or something, or just as a goodwill sort of gesture. It might be that inventory is also kept in the window and therefore gets damaged, or it's a piece of display stock that might actually be used by customers trying out a product. Really similar fashion here, we are putting it into our inventory card in the out column with the same memo number. Okay. Now this actually does fit the definition of an expense because in this case we're decreasing our assets and we're increasing our advertising expense. So it's important that a business calculates its gross profit. Gross profit is simply the revenues of the business minus our cost of sales, okay, or our cost of goods sold. Now, it's important to remember this because this shows us how efficiently the business is turning inventory into profit. So when we report this in our income statement, it's going to look like the following. We have our sales less our cost of sales equals our gross profit. We also have to note that we're going to sometimes have inventory losses or gains, and this gets reported along with our gross profit to give us our adjusted gross profit. Okay, because it's once again an expense or a revenue that is directly related to the buying and selling of inventory. So in the case of an inventory loss, it'll look like the following. We have, once again, sales of 100,000, cost of sales 50,000, gross profit of 50,000. But here we now have an inventory loss equaling our adjusted gross profit. Similarly with inventory gains, we're just going to add on that gain because it's a revenue. So same figures as before, but then we add an inventory gain of $2,000. Okay, so when we're talking about managing inventory, we're talking about efficiently using our inventory and maintaining it. So for that, we need to follow a few different principles. The first of which is going to be maintaining a maximum and minimum number of pieces on hand. Now, if we have too much inventory, it's going to create a cost of storage, too little inventory, and we might lose out on sales because customers can't find what they want. We need to make sure that we're rotating our inventory. So the oldest stock on hand is always displayed at the top or the front, so that ends up being the bit that's purchased first. This is really important when it comes to perishable goods in supermarkets and things like that. We'll also have to be aware of over-investing in seasonal things. So there's no point in spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on buying winter coats directly at the end of winter when we're about to head into summer. That inventory is going to sit there for months, totally unused. And by the time we get around to the next winter season, might actually be out of fashion. So we need to be wary of these sorts of things. The next thing is we need to be aware of technology changes. So for some businesses, moving with technology changes is going to be really important. No one's going to want to buy a 10-year-old mobile phone, and having stock like that on hand is not going to be worth it. So instead, we need to make sure that we're keeping up with technological trends and not making over-investments into different technologies at the end of their life cycle. We should also be aware of complementary products. So some businesses achieve an increase in their sales just by having complementary items. As an example, rather than just selling suits, a menswear store might choose to sell other items such as shirts, belts, and ties. Now, by doing this, people end up buying a whole outfit together rather than just that one item from you and moving on to a different store. It also helps to attract customers who might not otherwise have come into the store, so you're increasing your sales in a number of ways. One of the biggest reasons a trading store might actually end up with inventory losses is because of theft. So as a result, we need to make sure that we're maintaining really tight security. Some of the techniques that we can use to minimize inventory losses include security tags on all products, using electronic security beams on exits. We could be keeping video surveillance. We could use dive bombs on clothing. We could have security guards on exits, or we might have undercover security personnel. Now, some of these are quite cheap and easy to maintain. Some of these are a lot more expensive. So what is right for the business is going to depend on the scale that they need. Lastly, looking at inventory turnover is a great way for us to maintain and manage effectively what are effective items of inventory. Now, in terms of using inventory effectively, it's important that we have a turnover rate that is in line with the rest of the industry. So we calculate it as the following. We have the average amount of inventory times 365, and we divide that by cost of goods sold. And that will give us the inventory turnover rate in days. So in terms of understanding what would be a good turnover rate, we need to understand the sort of business that we're in. You need to understand that, say, a bakery is going to have a much faster turnover rate than a car dealership or any other sort of technology. Whereas for some businesses selling really large items, they might be perfectly content having a turnover rate that is well over 30 days, maybe even well over 60 days. So with this in mind, let's head to the wrap up and I'll leave you with the questions that you need to get done. The effective management of inventory is one of the best ways that a business can improve its efficiency and improve its productivity. By maintaining effective control over all the inventory that a business has, and by sticking to the different principles to make sure that it's keeping the right inventory and it's managing that inventory well, a business can go from somewhat lackluster performance to excellent. The different practical questions that you need to get done for this topic are pretty varied, but I think you guys will be just fine, and we'll get onto that in class. So I'll leave you with the questions that you need to get done, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks. Bye.